Hello, Exploring Computer Science class. This is Mr. Fox. I thought I'd just give you a few more instructions on that final project since that's going to be a big percentage of your grade. Also, make sure you guys get in your starters. There are some of these other assignments that are probably not as big a deal as this final project and the starters. So if you are worried about every, you can see how many points they're worth up at the top. So I mean, if you can see that they're worth 10 points as opposed to 100 points, that means this final project is worth 10 times as much. Let me just go through these assignments and tell you about them, where you can locate them in Canvas. So I'm looking at Gradebook right now, and there's not a lot of, don't show this, there's not a lot of people that have turned everything in. If you do, you probably have a good grade. If you haven't, you probably don't have a good grade. But I'm looking at this. Let's see here. Let me get to the right class here. I'm looking at these. Let me get to fourth quarter. These grades, and we've got the folder, which I've only put a 0 in for kids that haven't done anything yet. Otherwise, it should be blank because they haven't graded that yet because you guys aren't done with your starters yet. But that's going to be done shortly here, probably in the next probably 2 or 3 more starters after today. So I'm looking at the other assignments, and we've got the candy bar activity, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the handshake and fence post activity. Those were done at the school before we left on break. So I was going to put those in third quarter, but because the school was on lockdown, I was gone from the school, and the papers were at school. So you guys, if you guys were there and did it, you guys get credit. If not, it's probably too late to make those up at this point. But we have done several other assignments. We did a slideshow on cornrow grading from the cultural standpoint. And that was sort of a precursor for the next assignment, which was your cornrow design. You had to go to that website, which was cdst.org, and do your own cornrow design. That was due on the 9th. When you look at a due date, that usually means that you look on Canvas and the class before that due date. So on April 7th, 8th, that's where it would have the instructions for that cornrow design. And then we had a couple binary worksheets, and that was on April 9th and 10th. Okay, and if you can't find the assignment on there, look in files. There's a, come show this now, Shannon. You look to the left here of these assignments. Let me put this in student view so you can see what it looks like for you guys. Okay, so you go on that April 9th and 10th assignment, and it tells all about the binary questions, right? And then you go here to files, and that's where you're going to find those binary worksheets. In the files, we've got the 2 binary worksheets, which are sending secret messages and working with binary. And these are the cards that I had you guys cut out as well, if you want to do that to practice, if you haven't taken your binary quiz yet, or the test. There's some binary questions on that as well. The sorting types, you really didn't have to do anything. It was just to help you out with the test. You need to know those sorting types. We didn't do an activity for that. And then the Muddy City activity, that was that minimal spanning tree. And then finally, this is the rubric for that final project. So as you look at it, it says, for this project, you will use the data you've been collecting about your activities after school. Each group member should determine the day they visited the most locations after school and what those locations were. Okay, a couple of things. First of all, we're not doing this as a group. This is an individual project. And second of all, you guys aren't going anywhere, so I'm just having you guys make up places that you've been at sometime in the past before we were all on lockdown and not leaving our houses off. And if you guys are going, you've been 20 places in the last couple of weeks or whatever, go ahead and put those down. If you haven't gone out of your house, just make it up. But if you want to go to a walk to the around the block or whatever, or to your friend's house and back without going in, you can just say you visited there. That's fine. If you go to your relative's house and you can put that on there as well. So you need to determine the shortest route to get to all those locations, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to do this on Google Maps. So go to Maps here. And so you're going to put in your first location. Maybe it's Smith's, right? And you went to Smith's in West Valley City. All right, we're going to say this one up here on, no, we don't want that one. We want this one here. This one up here. Okay, so that's 5620 West, 4100 South, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to hit this little blue arrow, this blue circle with the arrow in it. It says directions. And maybe you went to Hunter Library, right? And it's going to give you those directions. Now it says it's about 5 minutes or 1.3 miles away. And then you just hit this little blue plus, add destination. You can do that for all 10 of your locations. And so maybe your next one is Walmart, right? Okay. Now what this is saying is you're going from Hunter Library to Smith's to Walmart, and that's probably pretty good. You could reverse it, say, hey, I want to start in Walmart and then go, but you probably don't want to say, hey, let's go to Hunter and then to Walmart and then to Smith's, because that would probably take a longer way around to go up here, and then you'd have to backtrack. So what you can do is you drag these in the order that you sort of want them, right? So if you don't want to go there first, right, then you say, well, let's go to Smith's first, right? And you go to Smith's and then to Hunter, and any way you want to go, and then you can just sort of like drag the streets as well and sort of show a different route, right? Now, how do you get this to be two separate? Because you need a map for distance, but you also need a map for time. So the Google default is going to give you the quickest time. So, but if you want a shorter distance, right now it's 3.9 miles. We say, hey, let's walk, right? That cuts it down to 3.7 miles. And that would be two separate routes. That would be good for your two maps. So you want one map with your 10 locations on it and have the shortest time possible, and the time is right here, right? This says 1 hour and 12 minutes because you're walking, right? But you want another one that's a shorter distance. So once you do that and you have all 10 of your locations, then you're just going to screenshot, right? On a Chromebook, a screenshot is, I think it's Shift, Control, and then the little, there's a little square up here on the F, I think it's F6 or F7 up there. And you just hit that on a Chromebook. If you have you have Windows like me, you can use the snipping tool, right? And then on an Apple, it's something else. But if you're using the snipping tool, you just hit New, right? And then you hit that snip, and then you have the opportunity to save that wherever you want to. And then when you get into your slideshow, right, then you're just going to insert that image right onto one of your slides. Let me show you a good slideshow so you guys know what I'm expecting here. So as I present this, you can call it map project, you can call it final project, but as you look down the rubric there, it says you need to have an overall plan. So they've got a slide for that. And they've got 19 locations. You guys only had 10, right? So it's easier. So to do as an individual, it's easier in some ways. It's harder in other ways. But I think you guys will be able to do it just by doing 10 locations, and you can get those all on one map. So you can only do 10 locations on one map. So these, because they had 19 locations, they had to do two maps twice, right? Because once for time, once for distance. So this is a map example, right? And then they've got their map. They've got the Google Earth or satellite view here. You don't have to do that. You can do it on just the map, but it shows that they did it in 54 minutes or 16.2 miles. And then it's got all their locations up here as well. And then they've got their map 1 for distance. Again, they've got all their locations. And this is 15.2 miles, right? And here you can see it's 16.2. So they were able to cut a mile off by using alternative routes. You just drag the streets around until you can find a closer one, or you can change it to walking or bicycle or something like that, and that'll give you shortcuts. So that's what you're doing for the distance one, if you're looking for shortcuts. So here's their second map for time and their second map for distance, okay? And they've got that all, whatever they had to put their last location on their first map as their first location on their second map, so that they could just add all their, so it would be one continuous map, right? So they just added those times and those distances together. You guys don't have to do that because you only have 10 locations, so you can get all 10 locations on one map, okay? Because you guys aren't doing a group project. Okay, so they got the total distance between the two maps is 51.2 miles. The total time is 2 hours and 35 minutes. And then they say, are they the same or not? They should not be the same. You guys should be able to find a map or a route for shorter distance. You guys can hear my birds whistling back there. I wish they'd be quiet for once. We used many different roads to have different speed limits and traffic. Okay, so let me show you guys why that is. So Google Maps is going to give you what they think you can get to a place in the fastest amount of time is, right? So if you have point A and point B, and point C over here, right? They could say, okay, well, to get to point A, from point A to point B, first you're going to go over here to get onto I-15, then you're going to go down to I-15 and get off the highway, and then get down to point B. And then to get over to point C, you're going to go back up to the 201, right? And then take the 201 over and then get down to point C. So that's how Google Maps would tell you to go, because there's faster speed limits on these streets, on the 201 and on I-15, right? But if you were walking, you wouldn't walk out to the highway, right? You would say, hey, let's just go and take this little side road here, and that would be a lot less distance than this, right? And if you were to go, oh, let's just take this right here, and then you got a little side street that comes up here, and like that. That's a lot less distance than this one as well. So you can cut down on your distance, and it might say that it's taking more time if you were driving, right? But if you're walking, it would probably cut down on time. So that's what you want to do, to look for an alternative route, okay? Let me show you the rest of this real quick. Other things to consider, there should be a slide like this that talks about other considerations you might have. So some other things that could affect the time and distance are traffic, construction, speed limits, weather, the time of day, and accidents. And they've got little pictures which, you know, help it out, makes it look like a good presentation. And that's it. You just need the maps, right? They've got 4 maps here. Maybe they got more than 4 because they got them twice. But you're only going to need 2 maps, right? One with all 10 of your locations for shortest amount of time, and one of all 10 of your locations for shortest amount of distance. This is a big part of your grade. It's 100 points. Okay, the starters are going to be 100 points as well. But, you know, this is really what most of your grade is going to be on, okay? You guys need to make sure you do your daily starters, but each one of those, you know, is worth 5 points or whatever, and you got about 20 of those. We got about 2 weeks left in the quarter, guys. That's it. So you guys need to do a good job on this. Then right after we're done with this, we're going to start a small unit on computer programming. We're going to use a program called Scratch, and we're going to spend a couple weeks on that. But get this done over the weekend. Okay, it's due on Tuesday. Let me know if you have any questions about it, and just look at the video here and get a good example of how one should look. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later.